Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and it's my honor to host this daily conversation around all things dealing with the coronavirus crisis. We're covering three crises on this show: the health, financial, and racial inequality crises. We're always looking for guests and theme suggestions. Please email us, sree@sree.net. Today, we have a very special show for you. We're going to be talking about food and climate security through the lens of the soil. And we have with us the winner of the 2020 World Food Prize and professor of soil science at The Ohio State University, Dr. Rattan Lal, who was awarded the prize on June 11th. And this is one of his first in-depth interviews on video. We're so honored to have him with us. You will meet him in just a couple of minutes. Please share this with your friends and family. We're live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. Please share this so that people can meet Professor Lal and talk to him. We'll join him in just a minute. Hello, everyone. I'm Sree. I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism and the co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting company. Our motto: don't cancel your in-person event without talking to us. Don't even plan your virtual event without talking to us. We've been doing dozens of events a month virtually for organizations big and small around the world. Please get in touch, sree@sree.net. Thank you all for being here. Today is a very important day, a somber day, as we mark the passing of John Lewis, who died last night. And the Representative John Lewis was an American icon, an American leader whose passing is a tragedy for all of us. Later today, I will be hosting my Saturday morning show, WBAI, my call-in show. And on it, we'll be talking about Representative Lewis with Mary C. Curtis, journalist and commentator, who has been a guest on my other show, the New York Times Read Along, and we'll also later on be talking to Citation Mariam, founder of the Bronx Mutual Aid Network, poet, activist, and organizer. On the screen there, you see a photograph that I had the honor of taking with Representative Lewis, and that's a picture from 2013. He was a great man, and we met at the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund annual gala, and he spent time with me. It was just a few minutes, obviously, gala with 800 other people. I was the MC with Juju Chang, and we got to talk a little bit, and he made me feel so connected. One of the comments that he made that day that I'll never forget, he said, "We all arrived on different ships, but we're all on the same boat now." And that is the situation, as we know, with the crises that are taking place all over this country at this moment. Please tag your friends, please share, and if you have a comment about John Lewis, we'd love to hear it here as well. But you can join me on my WBAI show, which is at noon Eastern time, so about 3 hours from now, noon to 2 Eastern, we'll be doing call-ins and taking your calls. But you can listen from anywhere in the world on WBAI.org, or go to WBAI 99.5 FM, a radio station here in New York City. But you can listen and participate from anywhere in the world. And also, if you leave your comments here, I will read them on the radio show there as well. Before we start, we want to thank our producers, Vandana Menon and Rose Horowitz. They make it possible for me to do this show every single day, 129 shows in 129 days. We've not missed a single day through this crisis. And as you can see, we've had more than 1 million viewers, 88 million social impressions, 234 guests from 48 cities in 13 countries. Yesterday, we went to Vegas for the first time. And today, we're going live to a town in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio. And so that will make it city number 50 on the show. We've had doctors, professors, authors, CEOs, nurses, teachers, and all of those folks have made this show what it is today. And so have you. Scroll.in is one of our supporters. They live stream this on their channels. They're more than 2 million followers. please check out scroll.in, one of India's leading news, information, culture, and analysis websites, scroll.in. And before we start, we want to thank our sponsors who make all of this possible. The sponsors include Muckrack Academy, which has put together this course, a free online course for anybody to take anywhere in the world. Please sign up. Fundamentals of Social Media, free certification, mrac.co/social, open to any age, any background, any experience, mrac.co/social. More than 4,000 people have signed up for this class, and we hope you will too. We promise you'll learn something doing the course. It's about 2 hours Netflix style, and you can take it right now, and you can take it in 2 hours, or you can take it over 2 months. You have the choice. So that's mrac.co/social. We also want to tell you about another show that we produce. It's called She's on Call, Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern, and it's on Facebook and on Twitter. Please follow at She's on Call, hosted by two of my surgeon friends, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Kurian. At Dr. Wendy Sinta and Dr. Tamara Fountain are the guests this Sunday. They're both senior leaders in medicine, and you will get to talk to them about all kinds of aspects of the crisis. So please follow She's on Call tomorrow morning. And before we start, we want to tell you about one last show from our stable of shows. This is called the New York Times Read Along. Every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, we read the New York Times out loud. Why do we do that? Because we love print. And tomorrow we have our special guest host, Neil Parekh, executive producer of the show. And our guest is Claire Smith, the first woman inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame's Writers Wing. She's the former New York Times sports columnist and the current news editor of ESPN. So join us Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. If you're wondering why I'm on so early today for the New York Times, for the COVID show, it's because tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, I am doing this. I am hosting Pratham Beyond with Fareed Zakaria of CNN and the Washington Post, Bollywood star Anil Kapoor, playback singer Shan, and the CEO of Pratham, Rukmini Banerjee. Please tune in. You have to register. It's not on my regular channels. You have to register, prathamusa.org. It's volunteer-driven fundraising, so whatever you can give and are able to give, please do. prathamusa.org, 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Please sign up right now so that you can attend and listen to me interview Fareed Zakaria, Anil Kapoor, and Rukmini Banerjee. So don't miss that. Our guest has been waiting very patiently. So let me bring on stage our guest right now. We're going to be talking with Dr. Rattan Lal, winner of the 2020 World Food Prize. Just in June 11th, it was announced. He's a professor of soil science at Ohio State University. And we'll talk about soil for food and climate security. We'll talk about the prize. We'll talk about life as a professor, how he's getting ready. We'll talk about his years growing up in India, all of that. And it'll start right now. Please bring your warmest greetings. Say hello to Professor Rattan Lal. Hello, Professor.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for your patience as we did all that housekeeping before we started. We're delighted to have you here, sir. My first question always is, how are you? How's your family doing through the crisis?
Oh, thank you very much. With the grace of God, we are doing fine. Family doing very well. And I'm very pleased that professionally, the activities, although done virtually, teaching, professional seminars, meeting, discussion with students, but they're all proceeding very well. So I'm very happy, very thankful to the God for the blessing. And I hope that this tragedy will also be gone soon with all the efforts being made. We should be okay. We should come out of it.
Well, I like your optimism, and that's good to have. We should also say that you won this World Food Prize in the middle of the pandemic. You got the announcement. The contest the ceremony will be taking place later. You're not sure if it's going to be physical yet. Is that correct?
I think it will be a virtual ceremony, which is really a good idea because the safety is first. That's number one part. Second, we were thinking really I could get there on a private jet, and my concern was that the carbon footprint of flying should be minimized. I'm very much concerned by climate change issues, so I think virtual is, in a way, advantage because we do not have to travel, and that to me is very positive. Yet the ceremony kind of highlights the importance of agriculture, the importance of farming community, not only for food but also for climate and environment. And I'm very fortunate and privileged to have that award.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the award in just a minute. You're in Columbus, Ohio, where the university, the Ohio State University. First of all, I've never been sure why they insist on the like that.
I think that is part which is something really somebody in the management might understand better, can explain. But I think Ohio has many universities, and they had to, President Gee decided that the word "the" should be there. But I just want to make one statement. For me, Ohio State University is an institution which has given me identity who I am. And I've been affiliated with Ohio State since 1965. And it's really a privilege and honor to serve my alma mater and to be a teacher at this university. It's a great organization, a great institution for higher learning, and it's important for me to be a part of such a global international organization.
Well, I could do the math very fast because you said you've been there since 65. I was born in 1970, so you've been there 55 years. Incredible. I want everyone to hear your story, how you got here, how you became a soil scientist. You'll explain what that is. All of this, folks, you're watching right now. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Please share this with your friends and family. Tag them. They can watch this live or later. It'll be on these channels right after we're finished, so people can join us and learn from Professor Lal. And Professor Lal, I hope you've had a chance to tell your family that you're on this show as well. And anybody can join us from around the world. We're just so pleased that you are here with us. So let's start with the kind of the basics. What is a soil scientist, and what are you teaching there? And how did you come to become an expert on this? And why should we care about all this? So let's start very basic. What is a soil scientist?
Well, a soil scientist is a person who studies the property, processes, management of soil as a medium, in my case, for agricultural use. People sometimes do not understand the difference between soil and dirt. Soil is a living entity. Soil is something that creates life. In fact, the first part I explained to my student, there is no life without soil, and no soil without life. And from a little bit of spiritual perspective, when people talk about reincarnation and rebirth and transformation of death into life, as far as I know, soil, the rhizosphere where the roots and soil interface meets, is the only place we know in the universe where death is transformed into life. So soil has divine powers of giving life. It is that important. As a soil scientist, I teach three classes, in fact, from this spring. One is soil physical environment, which means climate, water, air, physical media. I also teach a class on soil and climate, how soil impacts climate and how climate impacts soil. It is not very well recognized that soil is the largest reservoir of carbon in terms of the terrestrial. Ocean is much bigger than soil, but in the terrestrial, soil is a very large. So a very minute change in soil carbon stock have a very strong influence on the atmospheric carbon stock, and vice versa. If a carbon can be taken out from the atmosphere, put back in the soil, even a small change in soil have a large impact on carbon and climate. So the climate moderation is governed by soil. And I'm going to also teach a class along with many colleagues from this spring, and it's called One Health Concept. And One Health Concept is based on the premise that the health of soil, plants, animals, people, and the environment is one and indivisible. In the COVID-19 case, the health of soil, health of environment uh, are all interconnected. So if we want to maintain good environment and good health of soil, plants, animal, people, we must look after soil. So that's what I do as a soil scientist.
Thank you so much. We're looking at your School of Environmental and Natural Resources page at The Ohio State University. And here we go. We're looking at all your signature areas: environmental quality and sustainability, food security, climate change and soil carbon, soil degradation and restoration. And your interests include greenhouse gases, soil wetness, sustainable management of soil and water resources, agroforestry, tropical agriculture, agricultural development in the developing world. So a lot of amazing work that you have done, and you've gotten so many other prizes in addition to the World Food Prize. You won a big prize last year. Please tell us about that.
Last year I got two prizes. One is Japan Prize, and that is very prestigious. I was the first one soil scientist ever to receive the prize. I think there were 100 recipients so far, and the first time ever a soil scientist received an award. It is presented in the presence of Their Excellency the Emperor and Empress. And after the award, my wife and myself had the honor of having dinner with Emperor and Empress of Japan.
Wow.
And so this was a very unique privilege. And of course, it comes with 5 million yuan, which translates at the moment to about $450,000. So it's a very big money. And I donated that money to promote education and research in soil science at The Ohio State University. So that was one very big award. I also received a US Avasti IFCO award from India, which is given by Fertilizer Association, and that comes with 25 lakh rupees award. And that I also designated for education and research, hopefully in India. Right now, I have not yet decided how to promote that, but I think I have many alma maters in India, so hopefully association with them to support some education and teaching. So I'm very fortunate, very privileged. God has been very kind to me.
Yeah.
And colleagues and friends around the world have been very kind to me.
Well, I hope they're all watching today, and congratulations. And what a wonderful gesture, not just a gesture, an actual act of kindness and generosity to give away money like that. We're talking, several $100,000. Very few people would do that. That comes from your generosity there for sure. We want to go on what we call a global tour, Professor. We have people from around the world watching, and we like to see where they're watching from and talking to us. So let's see, from Italy, Claudia is watching. She's in Rome, and she was a guest on my show on earlier this week when we talked to her about COVID and arts and how the arts are trying to survive during this pandemic. What is your favorite memory of Italy?
Oh, I have been there many times. I think first time I went there was probably 71. And then FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization headquarter is in Italy. So I go there quite often, actually. I'm associated with them in many activities. I have just received a document from them to review on soil organic carbon assessment manual. Very good colleague to work with, excellent hospitality. I have very fond memories of Rome. I was supposed to be there for a meeting this last April. Again, it was canceled because of the COVID issue. There was another meeting supposed to be in July that was also canceled. I think things will hopefully get better and we will get back to normal activity. But I must say that Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations is doing a tremendous job internationally to to address the issues of food and nutrition. So working with them is a privilege, an honor.
Yeah, so you're sending greetings back to Rome for the World Food Organization, and it's great. So the winner, we're speaking right now to the winner of the World Food Prize 2020, Professor Rattan Lal. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us where you're watching from, and please share your comments. And I should ask you, what kind of diet do you follow, since you're an expert on food? And going to Italy, the best part to me always is the food of Italy, the people of Italy, the food. I tell people that tomatoes in Italy taste better than any tomatoes you've had anywhere in your life. I had the honor of going multiple times just last year. I've been going since I was a kid to Italy, but I went to Tuscany for the first time and just loved it. And the tomatoes tasted better there. I don't know if I was imagining it. Tell us, Professor, is it my imagination?
No, I think you're very right. The climate has a tremendous impact. And the Mediterranean climate, of course, is very good for the quality of the food produced. You asked me a question, my food habits personally. Food habits are very personal things, so I cannot make any recommendation. I have no intention to doing that. I have been vegetarian all my life. And to me, vegetarianism, plant-based diet has served very well. Most of my family is vegetarian. I think it is a nature-friendly food habit. I think with 7.8 billion people, destined to be 9.8 billion by 2050, 11.2 billion by 2100. We have to figure out ways and means on how to feed 11 billion people while reconciling the need for improving the environment and also looking after the planet Earth. We have only one planet, planet A. There is no planet B for us at the moment. Maybe in future, we might have some settlement at Moon or Mars, but right now, this is it. And I think vegetarian food is something which can meet the nutritional need of 11 billion without excessively taxing the resources, finite resources, fragile resources of this jewel of the universe, planet Earth. So I think we should pay a very good attention to what we eat and how environment friendly that food is. And that is what I would suggest. Decision is personal and independent, but always consider where the food comes from. I was asked a few weeks ago to give a lecture to primary and secondary school teachers. The question was, where does the food come from? Well, it comes from soil, stupid. Where else? That's a simple answer. And therefore, we got to respect the planet where the food comes from.
You're so right. You mentioned eating dinner in Japan with the Emperor and Empress of Japan. What a life highlight that must have been. I was born in Tokyo 50 years ago, and I know how hard it was to get vegetarian food for my grandmother who came to visit. She would ask for vegetarian food, and they'd say, yes, completely vegetarian, but there would be fish in it or shrimp in it. So I presume they had a special meal for you.
I did have a privilege of having a special meal for both me and my wife. And it was very delicious and very nicely done. In fact, when I went there for the announcement of the Japan Prize, I was with the selection committee, had a dinner with them, and the entire menu was vegetarian for everybody, not only just for me. And I must say it was done in a very high taste and very high quality. So I have been very privileged, having no difficulty at all, as long as my hosts know that I'm vegetarian everywhere. I have been always been very fortunate to be given the best vegetarian food that I could ever expect. So I have absolutely no concern, and I never have. I must also mention that I'm teetotaler. I don't drink either, and I don't think I have ever inhaled or smoked either one of those. So I think to me, those habits have served very well.
But they have it. Look, you still have
recommending them. I'm making no recommendation to anybody. I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a medical doctor, but to me, they have been a very good thing personally.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I should say, whatever you're doing. It's great. You have better hair than me. You have a couple of years on me, but you've done very well, and we're so glad to hear that. Before we move on, just one question about the awareness of vegetarianism has gone, I think, increased by orders of magnitude in the last few years. Talk about that a little bit. I know you're not making a recommendation, but you say it's better for the planet because it is less environmentally taxing compared to growing animals to eat them. So please talk about that.
Yes, I think there is a lot of awareness. I'm very pleased that the young uh, generation is more and more getting involved in vegetarian. But at the same time, I must mention that I'm concerned that the trend in emerging economies, India is obviously an emerging economy, the rate of increase from vegetarian, that traditionally Indian diet is, to animal-based diet is increasing as much as 15% per year. And it can be advantageous in some respect because animal industry obviously is an important component of economy, and it should be supported. But I think the diet is something we want to make sure that it is healthy. A healthy, balanced combination is a good idea. I'm not sure whether meat 3 times a day is the best option. I think only a nutritionist can tell. But I believe a judicious combination, a good choice of plant and animal-based diet, rather than having an excessive animal-based diet, is really the best way to go. And I'm very pleased that the trend is in globally is in good direction. But the tendency when you're getting more affluent to become non-vegetarian, it should be very carefully, critically, objectively thought about.
So tell us, in terms of have you gotten pushback from our Ohio friends who are, of course, many of them are non-vegetarian, and you get invited to cookouts and barbecues and all of that?
No, I have none, of course, nothing of that time. My friends and colleagues are very considerably generous and thoughtful. I'm also not very much involved in parties, even in good times. These days, of course, none at all. But no, I am not under any kind of pressure. My social circle, professional circle, they are all very careful, very knowledgeable, very understanding, very flexible. I'm very fortunate from that point of view.
That is awesome. Let's take a little tour as we were doing before. We only got to one of our comments, so let's do some more. Rajan is watching from Long Island, New York. You've spent time in New York, I'm sure. Tell
Yes.
us about your favorite memories of New York.
Very nice, very historic. I have visited several academic institutions, Columbia and other places. Dannon Yogurt Company has an office just outside of New York. I have not seen many social events, but I have gone to many times to United Nations office. It's a very important, impressive global institution. I have given a couple of times lectures there, of course, related to climate, food, and agriculture. So I have very good memories. Travel-wise, I always travel internationally through New York airport, which is very handy. So I have very good memories of probably dozen of visits annually through New York.
That's great. Let's keep looking at some of these comments coming in. Rupa says, so true. We have another viewer from Long Island. Linda is watching. And we have Vandana, who is our producer, who worked with you to bring you here. She's linked to the World Food Prize website. And Rick has a question for you. And Rick's question is, can you share your opinion about the effects of soil erosion on climate change? What can be done in the USA?
Very good professional question. In fact, I really appreciate that question. Soil erosion impacts globally about 1,100 million hectare for water erosion, zero point 0.6 million, zero point 0.6 billion hectare, 1,100 million hectare water and 550 million hectare wind erosion. Total amount of sediment transported by the rivers of the world is right now more than 37 gigaton. That's the sediment transport by erosion into the world rivers. And these sediments, both water and wind blown, carry organic matter preferentially because organic matter is much lighter in density, and therefore its density is 0.3, 0.4 gram per cubic centimeter compared with water, 1 compared with soil sediment particle density of 2.7. So organic matter is preferentially removed, and technically we call enrichment ratio of sediment is much greater than where it came from. My estimate has been that the sediment-borne organic matter re-emitted in the atmosphere because of decomposition contributes more than 1 gigaton of carbon just by water erosion alone. Now, it is true that part of the sediment-laden carbon, which is carried into depressional sites, into aquatic ecosystem, and eventually buried in ocean, goes out of circulation, but that's a small part. Majority part soil erosion is a source of greenhouse gases. So initially in the 70s, 60s, we were thinking erosion control primarily to improve water quality, sedimentation, loss of fertility. But since 1990s, we know that accelerated erosion is also a source of gases, especially methane and nitrous oxide under anaerobic condition. Therefore, we must have effective erosion control policy. And while we are talking about it, especially from the US perspective, the question comes from an audience from the US. In the US, we have a air quality act. We have a water quality act. We have no soil quality or soil health act. And I would question professionally, is it possible to have a good water quality and good air quality without having healthy soil quality? Therefore, it is a time that we thought about going back to US Senate, going back to Congress and saying we also need a healthy soil act. And if US have those trinity of act, healthy soil act, healthy air act, healthy water act, the world will follow us as an example. And that's the way to go.
Okay, we love hearing your thoughts on how to think about improving and saving, I think, this planet. And we're so grateful. I want to read for everyone right now the citation for the World Food Prize 2020. He just received it on June 11th, 2020, in the middle of this pandemic. And it says, Dr. Rattan Lal, native of India and a citizen of the United States, will receive the 2020 World Food Prize for developing and mainstreaming a soil-centric approach to increasing food production that restores and conserves natural resources and mitigates climate change. Over his career, spanning more than 5 decades and 4 continents, Dr. Lal has promoted innovative soil-saving techniques benefiting the livelihoods of more than 500 million smallholder farmers, improving the food and nutritional security of more than 2 billion people, and saving hundreds of millions of hectares of natural tropical ecosystems. Incredible sentences I've been reading there for everybody to hear that. As you said, this is you've had the benefit of your, you said God's grace. I'm sure your family and your colleagues, all of them are so happy and rejoicing at the moment that you won this prize. Talk about that a little bit. How do they tell you? Did you get an email? Do you get a call? How does that work?
Thank you. Yes, I received a call late in January, in fact, from the president of the World Food Prize Foundation. And frankly speaking, I wasn't expecting a call of that nature. So it was a great surprise indeed. my immediate reaction was, gee, wait a minute, let me make sure that I'm awake and not daydreaming. Um, it's a great honor, but I must say a couple of things. One, I have been very fortunate, had 115 graduate students from around the world who did their MSc and PhD thesis research with me. I had almost 60 postdoctoral researchers from around the world who did their postdoctoral research with me. I have several dozens, so maybe at least 12, 15 research scientists. And I had almost 200 visiting scholars from around the world who came to my lab for 6 months, 3 months, 1 year to do their research. And when they go back, they are doing the same research that we had done in Ohio. So I have been privileged to have 350 to 400 scientists from around the world who worked with me. So when I received the Japan Prize or World Food Prize, I'm receiving on behalf of all of my colleagues. That is why the money that I received, I donated back for the research. I'm representing the soil science community globally, who through me is being recognized, and I'm accepting those awards for them. And I want to thank all of them for giving me the privilege of working and representing them and receive these awards on their behalf.
That is so nice to hear. And your generosity is incredible. We have people watching from all over the world. We're grateful to have your comments, and everyone who's watching, please say hello. Lori is watching from Dobbs Ferry, just north of New York City. Jonathan Borstein is watching. Jonathan has been a dedicated viewer. He has watched all 129 episodes from Union Square in the East Village, which has its own tradition of vegetarian cuisine. He's saying that to us. Mark Lee is watching from Durham, North Carolina, and he says he's tagged a friend and says you should check out this show. And Jan, I guess, is running for soil and water office in Durham, North Carolina. It's an elected post, I guess. Thank you, Mark, and everyone watching. You know somebody who's interested in the environment, who's interested in saving the planet. Please tag them in this conversation. Please retweet. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and on LinkedIn. And for those of you who are just tuning in, I should also tell you that we started this session by paying tribute to John Lewis, the congressman who died yesterday at the age of 80, an incredible man whose legacy we will be celebrating later today on my show, where we will be talking about his work. This is my radio show. I host every single Saturday from noon to 2. It's called Coping with COVID-19, a helpful, hopeful call-in show. And our guest will be Mary C. Curtis, journalist and commentator. And we will also be meeting in the second hour Tayetun Mariam, founder of the Bronx Mutual Aid Network. Anybody from anywhere in the world can participate, WBAI.org. Or if you're in the New York City area, 99.5 FM, listener-supported WBAI Progressive Radio. So please join us if you can, noon to 2 p.m. Eastern. That's about 2.5 hours from now. And we are continuing our conversation. There you see a photograph of me with Representative John Lewis, and there he is. We met at the All-Deaf dinner, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund dinner that I'm honored to MC every year for the last dozen years or so, and he was incredible. This was in 2013, and his sentence that he uttered that I will never forget. He said, "We all came by different ships to this country, but we're all in the same boat now." And we certainly are, as we consider the extent of the crises in this country, the economic crisis, the medical crisis, the healthcare crisis, and of course, the racial inequality crisis. And we will continue to address all of those on this show that has been on the air right now for 129 straight days. In the first 125 days, we had more than 1 million viewers, 234 guests from 48 cities. But today we have our guest from the 50th city, because our guest is Dr. Rattan Lal, professor of soil science and winner of the World Food Prize 2020. And you're calling in from Columbus, Ohio. tell us a little bit about Columbus and tell us about Ohio itself. Many people know it as a state that has often been a predictor of national politics. And you have a governor who's Republican, but has been very quick to shut down and introduce social distancing, and in many ways, very different from other Republican governors. So if you don't want to get political, that's perfectly okay, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on Columbus and on Ohio itself.
Well, Ohio is a great state. The climate, the landscape, everything is very scenic, very nice to drive around the countryside. It's an agricultural state. 1/3 is unglaciated, 2/3 is glaciated, flat.
Sorry, what does that mean? Can you translate that?
During the last ice age, about 10,000-15,000 years back, the Labrador ice sheet had come all the way down to Cincinnati. So as the glacier receded, then it created a lot of fertile young soils, 2/3 of the Ohio, all the way from Cincinnati up and going west up to Rocky Mountains, the area. So that's where the glaciation period was. So 2/3 of the soils are glaciated. That's where the ice sheet came. And those are young soil, very fertile. The 1/3 eastern part is part of the hilly area. That's where the coal and the oil reserves are. That's where the ice sheet did not come. So it's a very nice landscape covering a lot of ecoregions. The city of Columbus, right now, about, I think, 2 million people, including the metropole. The total population of Ohio is more than 11 million. So the city is really very nice. It has a kind of impression of an agricultural part because it's not congested. It's really very nice. Agricultural farm of the Ohio State is, of course, within the city itself. So that gives also a very scenic view of agricultural crops on the campus and within the city area. I think a lot of progressive things have come up out of Ohio. Of course, people would say that aviation originated here as well. But from the scientific university point of view, Ohio State University is perhaps sometimes the largest one-campus enrollment. We have 65,000 enrollment last year. That's a very large student body. We have about 3,500 faculty members. We have 18 colleges representing all the disciplines. My college, of course, is College of Food, Agriculture, and Environment Sciences. And to say something about the College of Agriculture, which recently, about 10-15 years ago, named College of Food, Agriculture, and Environment Sciences, have been very actively involved in India, going back to 1955. Our college here was involved at a campus in Punjab, which had 2 sub-campuses at that time in Solan and in Hisar, which eventually became 2 separate states. So those made 3 separate universities that Ohio State was involved. Ohio State was also involved in Rajasthan at Udaipur campus. So we have 4 campuses, agricultural, which were cooperatively developed in the land grant university format by the Ohio State University. And that cooperation we continue to keep going and strengthening. So I'm very proud that Ohio State has played a very important role in agricultural education and development, but at the same time in bringing about the green revolution in India since the 60s, which is very important to India's food security. So that's all the plus for Ohio State. And the reason I'm here is because of the linkage between Punjab and Ohio State going back to 55.
Thank you. This is a photograph I took in my first visit to Columbus, Ohio, at the Ohio State University. That's the campus stadium on the left. It can hold 105,000 people. The university has more than 56,000 students on its 1,700 acres and 400 buildings, and about 10,000 freshmen each fall. These are stats I wrote in 2012. I did not have the pleasure of meeting you then, Professor, but I hope if I come back, I get to spend some time with you.
That's a very nice picture of the campus. It's a beautiful campus.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing about Ohio State. And one of the reasons why Ohio State is so well known is the work it does with the environment, as well as with the work with the farmers, right? The agricultural industry. Talk about the American farmer and his and her success in feeding the world, but also the challenges they are facing today.
Thank you. Yes, that's I mentioned Ohio is an agricultural state. About 80,000 farmers. Average farm size is about 600 acres. Corn, soybean, primarily the crops. Some of the farmers that I have worked with and have a privilege to know them are exemplary farmers. Absolutely innovative thinking in the modern way of looking at the soil and restoring. I can give by name a few examples that I'm very proud to know them. Mr. Bill Richards, one of the very large progressive farmer, whose farm I take many time visitors to see how agriculture should be done. And he does that. He and his sons do that farming very nicely. I know also Dave Brent, who's we had a chance to take a Minister of Agriculture from France to go and visit his farm. By and large, farmers here represent some of the best practices, very progressive. And the crop yields, corn, for example, getting 10 to 12 tons per hectare. That's almost 5 to 6 tons per acre from that point of view. Soybean also about 3 tons per hectare. Wheat 3 to 3.5 tons per hectare. I think if we can somehow adopt similar progressive farming throughout the world, Sub-Saharan Africa, our neighbors down in the Central Americas, the Caribbean area, and South Asia, I think the possibility of making sure that the entire growing population can be fed through healthy and nutritious food is very good. So I think Ohio farming community that I feel very proud of. Our college has worked very closely with them, very good relation. Some of the progressive farmers serve on the board of trustees, I know they have, and also on the cabinet of the dean, I know that. Certain parts, so there's a dialogue between them, communication. Farmers can influence our thinking of the scientific community, and we of course seek their advice. We serve them. Farmers are our bosses in a way, because we are, being a land grant university, we do what is good for them, and therefore we listen to their opinion. We listen to what they think needs to be done. So this cooperation based on mutual dialogue and understanding is very productive. And land grant institution implies integration of research, education, and extension, scaling up. So those three components are brought together through cooperation, through working with the community. Right now, I have a grant proposal funded by Hoover Foundation, and it is based on working with farmers in Stark County. And that is an example of how the funding organizations are also encouraging involvement of researcher with the farming community. I must also mention that College of Agriculture and our deans, they support us to work with extension very strongly. I recently had a dialogue with our dean, who I was very pleased to hear. She said, we will have more support for my research in particular to work with farming community scaling up. So these are very, very progressive thinking from the decision maker at the college level, university level, and the farmers cooperation. That very exemplary. And I hope this kind of example can be adopted elsewhere in developing world as well.
Sure. Thank you, Professor. We only have a few minutes left with you. We have so many questions and comments coming in, so I'm going to do short questions and short answers, if that's okay. I want to remind everyone that tonight I'll be hosting a very special event, Pratham Beyond. You're invited to the National Fundraising Gala. I'll be interviewing Fareed Zakaria of CNN and the Washington Post, and Rukmini Banerjee, the CEO of Pratham, and Anil Kapoor, the famous Bollywood star. We'll all be there tonight, 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You have to sign up because this is not a show on my channels, prathamusa.org. Please go there and register right now. It's free. They would love to get a donation if you can afford it. prathamusa.org. They have so many fantastic events. I had a chance to interview Tom Friedman a couple of months ago for Pratham. Please check out prathamusa.org and go to their National Fundraising Gala tonight. Fareed Zakaria, Anil Kapoor, and Rukmini Banerjee, and the playback singer, Sean, will be there as well. So prathamusa.org, that's at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's why we're on so early this morning. And in a few minutes, our friend Stephen Kaplan will be hosting his show. It's called the Spin It Social Hour, and Simi Joyce will be the guest on that show. She's on Instagram at Culinary Optics, and they'll talk about photography and social media. So if you want to get a head start, you can head over there. But thank you so much, everyone, for your support of all our online activities. And tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, our Sunday New York Times read along, where we read the New York Times every Sunday out loud like crazy people. Neil Parekh, our guest host, will be there as also our executive producer. And our guest is Claire Smith, the first woman inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame's Writers Wing and former New York Times columnist, and now the current editor of ESPN, the news editor of ESPN. So check all of that out on our shows. Thank you, Professor Lal. Let's go to some of the questions that have come in. Here's one. The question is, Rattan, sir, please share your views on countering land degradation. How effective would the initiatives of UNCCD? What is the UNCCD?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. And I happen to be a member of the Soil Policy Interface. Their headquarters in Bonn, Germany, and they have adopted a program called Land Degradation Neutrality. The idea is anywhere where this land is degraded by erosion, salinization, there should be an equivalent amount restored somewhere. And India is signatory to that. I think that's a great cause. I wrote a position paper for that along with Uriel Safril from Israel and Ben Bohr from Sydney, Australia. And we call that zero net land degradation. And this is a great concept. And in interest of saving time, I would say, please support this idea that if we degrade land somewhere, we must restore an equivalent land elsewhere to make sure that the net land degradation is zero. That's in sum. It's a very great idea, very good question. Whoever is asking, I thank you for your knowledge.
Thank you. That was a really good question, and I'm so glad that people are able to hear your thoughts on this. Folks, we're talking to Dr. Rattan Lal, winner of the World Food Prize 2020, and this is the 129th episode of our daily program where we have been on the air talking about different aspects of this crisis. Let's keep going. My wife is watching from the 28th floor. She sends her regards, Professor. I'm in a different apartment so that I can be loud on a Saturday morning like this and at night. Basu Dwivedi asks your views on, so that's the question we already got. That was Basu whose question had come in. Mark says food deserts are so big in this area. He's in North Carolina. In some ways, the ancients, like those in South America, did a better job of making sure we're all fed in this society. What lessons in terms of irrigation and other things can we learn from the ancients? Great question, Mark.
Very good. Excellent question. Irrigation developed about 8,000 years ago. We have almost 350 million hectare under irrigation, out of which 70 million hectare are in India. The trouble is we are using flood irrigation. It is changing rapidly. It should change. India, for example, uses 200 kilometer cube of water every year for irrigation. We cannot afford wasting that much water. we must switch to micro irrigation. We can expand the area under irrigation, but reduce the water loss for irrigation purposes. I think subsidizing irrigation so people can use electricity as much as they want probably should be changed to subsidizing micro irrigation. So irrigation is a one way to go, but I must also mention, I said 800 million, 820 million worldwide, 40 million of that are in the US. Out of that 40 million undernourished in the US, 2 million are in Ohio. Out of the 2 million in Ohio, 500,000 are children under 5 not having adequate amount of nutritious food. Even one child going to bed hungry is unacceptable. Therefore, we must do whatever we can to make sure everybody has enough and adequate nutritious food. Food is the basic human right, and we must respect that right for everybody on the planet Earth.
Thank you. We'll go with a few more questions. And again, short questions, short answers. What do you think of intensive use of pesticides in agriculture? And how do you think people can deal with it, as organic products are so expensive to buy for common people?
We must minimize the use of pesticides. There's no question about that. Pesticides are, but please also remember the difference between poison and remedy is a dose. So judicious use of pesticide, targeted precision pesticide use is needed. And this is where I also come from GMOs. If Bt gene can remove the use of pesticide and decrease it, I realize it will have some natural pesticidal properties on its own, but I think it's a trade-off we must think about. Use organic pesticide. Neem, for example, in India is a very good organic pesticide, but by and large, have a judicious use, minimize it as much as you can. Do not use it ad hoc and indiscriminately.
Thank you. Let's see. Jaydeep Jadhav says, can you note on any Indian fertilizer companies' growth after COVID-19? So how is the Indian fertilizer business?
I think it's doing very well. India uses 165 kilogram per hectare of fertilizer. US uses much less than that. China uses about 400 kilogram in many parts of. I think our efficiency of fertilizer use in India is hardly 30%. So I would encourage industry to use formulation which increase efficiency. From 30%, if we can increase the efficiency to 70, 80%, we can reduce the rate of fertilizer. Just like I mentioned about pesticide, fertilizer should also be used judiciously, prudently, and properly so that we do not pollute the environment. As I mentioned, the difference between remedy and poison is the dose. Be careful how you apply, when you apply, and at what rate you apply. Minimize the rate, increase the efficiency.
I like that idea. The difference between remedy and you say science and poison. Remedy and poison is a dose, right? Just a dose.
Yeah. I think aspirin cures you the headache. 100 aspirin, you know what they do. They cure most things.
Right. Exactly. Well, I'm glad you're hydrating, sir. Very important.
Thank you.
And let's keep going here. So many questions and comments coming in. Mark has registered for my event with Fareed Zakaria, and Rajan says apparently at least 25 of the American astronauts have come from Ohio. So that tells you something about Ohio. Chris Gorman is watching from New York City. Glad to have you. What got Anil Nair asks, what got Professor Lal interested in soil?
I came from a farming family in near close to Cathal, around Jean area, small farm. You know how Indian farms are, 5 acre, 7 acre, 10 acre. And the 50s, when I was on the farm, bullock driven, I have been through dust storms, through drought, through the locust. I remember locust incidences quite a lot. So, and puddling, I remember transplanting rice in puddles. I remember the drought issue. So for me, soil has been from the very beginning a very critical component of agriculture because of my background, and also religious background, because we consider soil Vasundhara, Dharti Mata, it's Mata, Mother Earth. and we should consider it properly as a mother earth. So for me, soil has been, and this is why I'm very glad my award for World Food Prize was based on the soil-centric approach, which is supposed to be complementary to seed-centric approach. So both are, it's not either or, we need both. And thank you. This is natural to me, being a soil scientist.
Lori says the difference between remedy and poison is dose. Brilliant, she says. And Rajan says the precision use of pesticides seems wiser than what has been historically done. These are just comments coming in from everywhere. We're so glad. Mark says he was, I remember growing up with 4-H was a very big part of learning about agriculture. Wonder if these kinds of programs have fallen off in terms of popularity. Please tell us about 4-H and what it is and why it's important.
Head, heart, health, and 4 components. We still have a very strong 4-H program in Ohio. I think it's very good. It must need to be continued. It brings in young people to know that farming is a good profession. As far as I know, at Ohio State, 4-H in the building, we have 4-H building is one of the most excellent, modern, innovative designs, a very nice building. So activity is very good. I think it should continue. While we are talking about Ohio State and the astronauts, I'm very, very fond of Senator John Glenn. In fact, he's my hero. At 77, he went into the space. So that's the kind of heroism we need. So we have very good example from Ohio State, not only for 4-H, but also for Senate and other innovative ideas.
And that's great. We're looking at learning more. There's a great question that has come in, Professor, from Linda Lawrence, who asks the question, how can non-scientists like herself help improve healthy soil?
Thank you. Very good question indeed. Each one of us is a culprit and victim of not looking after the soil and land properly. So not wasting food. We waste at least 30% food even in this country. And most of it is wasted between the grocery store and the dinner table. In developing countries like India, food is wasted in the field, post-harvest losses and storage issues. So each one of us can save food, can save energy, can save water, and never ever take gifts of God, these natural resources, for granted. And we can make a difference. Incremental improvement by 8 billion people can make a whole lot of difference in planet Earth. So please do not undermine your contribution.
That's excellent. So glad to hear it. So you were talking about John Glenn going to space at 77. You are turning 76 this year, I understand. Is that correct?
I'm still very young. Yes.
You got lots of time to do interesting things. What is on your list of things to do when you come out of the pandemic, when you can travel again? Give us your list of things. And do you keep a bucket list of things you want to do generally in life? We had a guest who doesn't like the word bucket list because then he says you'll be kicking the bucket. So he said life list. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on both immediately travel and generally. Did you keep a list when you were growing up? Do you have a list like that now?
I did have actually things because even this morning I had a list of what things I would like to accomplish today. So I tick mark what I get done. So I do that. It is more like a habit of what I must get done, and what I cannot do today, that will wait till tomorrow, but I do have that list. And I keep that on a very regular basis. My goal has been to serve the farming community of the world. Both the large-scale farmers like we have North America, Brazil, Latin America, and the small landholders, which we have rest of the world, 500 to 700 million. I came from one of those farmers. I represent them. I'm very proud of them. My goal is to serve them in whatever way I can. And if it involves travel to places in India or South America or Africa, I will do so. But the principal objective to serve them. And if I can serve them while being here, through communication, through IT system, through Zoom, so be it, through publication, through lectures, through dialogue, through learning. I also consider them as a source of knowledge because they have experience, they have wisdom, they have traditional background. So listening to their views is very important to me. So that's my goal, to be of service to farmers of the world.
You have been for so many years. You've helped hundreds of millions of farmers. The World Food Prize said you have helped feed 2 billion people. Vedant Bhargava writes, hello, I'm going to make a career in agricultural sciences. You are a great inspiration, sir. I love to see that. And then we have a comment here and a question from Nikhil Hati Singh. And you'll recognize the name Hati Singh from the great Nehru family.
Yes.
And Nikhil asks, do you have a view on the impact of aerosols on soil land degradation? Are measures being taken to counter any ill effects?
Anything aerosol, which are chemicals, of course, we should be very careful about. If you remember Montreal Protocol, I think it was 1977, Freon, which is not the example of aerosol, but Freon was used as a cooling, as a refrigerating substance. And we were very successful in eliminating the use of Freon. We need similar a kind of awareness. I do not want to keep going back to legislation all the time, but we need awareness, we need education to people that be careful what you put in the environment. Barry Commoner had a book called The Closing Circle, and that book had 4 chapters, and one chapter was, there is no way to throw away. Everything must go somewhere. Mother Nature knows best, and there is no such thing as a free lunch. Everything has a price, and sometimes the price is ecological price. Ecological price is much more expensive than economic prices. Please use environment carefully. Do not treat it as a common. When we put aerosols, smoke, soot, dust, other things into the atmosphere, environment, that we treat them as a common, and tragedy of the common is what is causing the issues. Take care. Do not take them for granted.
Thank you so much. We have many more questions. We won't have time for all of them, but just a couple of more comments that we want to see. Mark says, unfortunately, and I'm as guilty as many of us, we waste too much of the great food we get by either not eating it all or letting it go to waste before it spoils. How many of us really pay attention to the shelf life of food when we buy them? So a question for you, Professor, is what can we do individually? You said incremental changes by 7 billion people can make changes. Give us 1, 2, 3 things we can do starting today in our homes.
Thank you. Food waste is a crime against nature. Please take what you need. Do not take more than what you can chew and digest and eat. Throwing things into the landfill is a triple jeopardy. First, we wasted the energy, resources, other to produce it. B, it's a very precious thing which many people go without it. And third, when we take it to the landfill, it emits gases, greenhouse gases, methane, nitrous oxide, pollutes water resources. So it's a triple jeopardy. It also indicates that we do not value that resource properly. From a religious point of view, I was brought up with the philosophy, Anna Bhagavan. It's a food is a god, and it is a god. How can you waste a god? So please do not waste food. Consider it very carefully. Our purchasing, do not purchase more than what you need, and do not waste it. Wasting does not matter which religion you take, but looking at, I read part of Quran verses, Allah does not like the wastefulness. Very nicely said. Please do not waste. We must stop. If we do not waste food, we don't need to produce more. That's as simple as that.
And can you talk about organic food? If you're in the store and you see an organic tomato versus a regular tomato, organics are more expensive. Some people say it's not necessary to buy organic. Some people say you must. Where do you come down on that?
If our population rather than 7.8 billion was 3 to 4 billion, organic agriculture would have been the best option. Organic agriculture at the moment has some yield reduction, maybe 15%, maybe 20%. So that is an issue. But over the long term, if our population can stabilize and come down to 4 billion, 5 billion eventually, maybe by 2200, 2100, we are still going up by 11.2 billion. Our priority, me as an agronomist, the priority is to make sure everybody has enough food. So a judicious use of chemical, judicious use, integration with organic, probably is the best way to go rather than saying thou shall not use the chemical. We may have to use them properly. Remember, we are going back to dose versus poison. So reduce the chemical use as much as you can, but do not make it a legal, thou shall never use it, because we have too many people to feed. I think that is the best I can say. But yes, organic matter added to the soil is good for soil.
Thank you, Professor. We must let you go. We've been very patient with us as we've talked for so long. You've joined 15 minutes early. We can't let you go without asking what are the pins on your jacket. So talk about.
Well, first of all, my tie is Ohio State tie, and the pin is Ohio State logo, and this is the Japan Prize logo, which I received last year. When I get the food prize, and if they have a logo, I'll certainly put that one as well. Yesterday, I was very fortunate to be given by IICA. IICA is Inter-American Institute of Agriculture and Cooperation, based in Costa Rica, and they gave me a title of Chair of Soil Science, IICA Chair of Soil, and Goodwill Ambassador for Sustainable Development. So if they give me a logo, I will certainly put that one also. I represent Ohio State, Japan Prize, World Food Prize, IICA, and other organizations. I am their ambassador. It's a privilege to show those colors.
Wonderful. You wear them. I can see you wear your love for the earth, not just on your lapels, but on your heart. We can see it. It's so clear and so grateful. Terry says, food wasted is a crime against nature. And Linda says, thank you for an extremely interesting show. Your guest is a treasure. Thank you for sharing him with us. We're so glad that, Linda, you were able to join us, and everybody around the world. Please share this. Please tag your friends and family so that they can get to meet Dr. Rattan Lal, Professor of Soil Science at The Ohio State University. I want to tell you once again that this is how the World Food Prize described his work. His career spanning more than 5 decades and 4 continents, Dr. Lal has promoted innovative soil-saving techniques benefiting the livelihood of 500 million smallholder farmers, improving food and nutritional security for more than 2 billion people. I'm just so amazed that you were able to spend time with us today. My grandfather in Kerala was a farmer, and his children grew up on a farm, and I had the honor of being with him and spending time and helping him in the paddy fields when I was a child. It was one of the things I look forward to when I went back to Kerala to spend time on the farm with him. Professor, thank you so much for your time, your insights. I'm so grateful to you. I want anybody who wants to take a photo of you to do so right now, and please post it. Professor Lal is a treasure indeed, and you can follow him on Twitter, and you can follow the World Food Prize as well, and The Ohio State University. Thank you very much, Professor. We'll say goodbye now.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Bye.
That was Professor Rattan Lal. Thank you so much for everybody for watching. We love your feedback. We love your comments. We love your thoughts on how we can continue to do this show. We've seen that we have been on the air for 129 days on this previous pandemic. We plan to continue to do this because of the incredible support we've gotten. We're always looking for guest ideas, team ideas, sponsor ideas. So please do that. Let's collaborate. Let's work on this together. You can see my email address is right there, sree@sree.net, youtube.com/sree. All 129 episodes. So now let me tell you what's coming up, and then we will do our show per end, which is the doing for many weeks after I speak completely the incredible chapter behind the study of personality. I asked her, what can people do to be allies as the community of Black folks? And she said, say their names, say her name, and we will be doing that in just a minute. First, let's tell you all the shows and things that we have coming up, and we're so grateful to all of you for your support as we do these. So right now you have seen this conversation with Professor Rattan Lal. You can share this right now. You tag it. It'll start again as soon as we're done. And then later on at noon Eastern, I will be interviewing and talking to folks on my WBAI radio show, 99.5 FM in New York, WBAI worldwide. Please join us as we pay tribute to Representative John Lewis. You can see a photograph of me with him. Mary C. Curtis will be here, journalist and commentator, as well as Tayatun Mariam. She's the founder of the Bronx Mutual Aid Network and poet, activist, and organizer. And we'll be taking your calls about John Lewis in about less than 2 hours. So please join us if you can. Then tonight I am hosting this very special program, Pratham Beyond. I am interviewing Fareed Zakaria of CNN and the Washington Post. I'm interviewing Anil Kapoor, the Bollywood star, and Dr. Rukmini Banerjee, the CEO of Pratham. Please join us. It is not on my channels. You have to register. It is free. prathamusa.org, prathamusa.org. You can donate if you are able to. They are grateful for any donation you can give, prathamusa.org, but it is free and available to everybody, but you must register. So that's my day today. And tomorrow, our guest host, Neil Parekh, the executive producer, will be hosting the New York Times read-along with Claire Smith, the first woman inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame Writers Wing, former New York Times baseball columnist, and the current ESPN news editor. So please check her out, and the whole conversation tomorrow, very early at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. It'll be 5 years of reading the New York Times out loud. And then in the evening, we'll have another special episode because we will have a chance to talk to our friend. I'll show you right now. We're doing our Sunday positivity show. That's what we do on Sunday, trying to be positive in the middle of everything that's going on. Tim Salau will be here. You can see he's a generally positive person. On Sunday nights, we try to be positive despite every rotten thing going on. We meet generally positive, purposeful people who can help us get ready for the week. We might cry together, laugh together, mourn together, get angry together, but we'll definitely learn together. And Tim is known as Mr. Future of Work. So please do join us and check him out on Twitter. Tim Salau will be our guest. He's the founder of Guide App and someone who can talk about the future of work. So you definitely don't want to miss that. Now we shall say their names. We started doing this because Kimberly Crenshaw asked us to do it. And here we have on the screen, I'm going to first tell you how we used to do it most of the time by reading the names on this Titus Kaffer cover story of Time magazine, stunning portrait that he made, painting. And on the right is a photograph I will never forget. That's a young George Floyd on the lap of his mother, Larcinia Floyd, who would die 2 years ago, almost to the day that he would be killed in Minneapolis. They are now buried together next to each other in Houston. Now, let's say her name. These are the names on the Say Her Name report. Breonna Taylor. These are the names of people killed in police action. Breonna Taylor, killed by police in her bed on March 13th, 2020. Tatiana Jefferson, Charlena Siobhan Lyles, Corinne Gaines, India Kager, Sandra Bland, Alexia Christian, Maya Hall, Megan Hockaday, Janisha Fonville, Natasha McKenna, Tanisha Anderson, Aura Rosser, Shanique Proctor, Michelle Cousseau, Pearlie Golden, Gabriela Navarez, Yvette Smith, Renisha McBride, Miriam Carey, Kayam Livingston, Kayla Moore, Shelley Fry, Melissa Williams, Shulena Weldon, Alicia Thomas, Chantel Davis, Charmel Edwards, Rekia Boyd, Charisse Francis, Aliana Stanley Jones, Tarika Wilson, Catherine Johnston, Alberta Spruill, Kendra James, Latanya Haggerty, Margaret Laverne Mitchell, Taisha Miller, Danette Daniels, Frankie Ann Perkins, Sanji Taylor, and Eleanor Bumpers. If you've not heard of most of those names, that tells you something about the situation we're in now, and that's part of the reason we say their names. And I will say something that I've said occasionally, I don't say it all the time. I'm the son-in-law of a police officer, someone who led, who believed in the power of the justice system. And so I'm not saying police officers are bad. The opposite. We expect police officers to be better than everyone. We hold them to a higher standard. No one is judge, jury, and executioner. That is something that we have a system for. And no matter what these folks could be accused of, or they were just standing by, nothing happening, they didn't do anything, it doesn't matter. That's not the point. We hold the police to a higher standard. That's the end of our show. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to sign up for my conversation this evening with CNN's Fareed Zakaria and Bollywood star Anil Kapoor, Rukmini Banerjee, the CEO of Pratham, and Shan, a playback singer and big Bollywood star singer. PrathamUSA.org. You have to register for this in order to be able to participate. So please register. It's free. PrathamUSA.org. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. We have such great comments that have come in from all over the world. We are so grateful for every comment and every person who has taken the time. Here's a comment that has just come in from Rhonda. All that you need to say. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you soon. We expect you to be joining us if you can. We're live every single day, mostly at 9 p.m. Eastern, and certainly otherwise at noon Eastern. We're on extra early today. Thanks very much, everybody. The show starts again on all these channels right now. Bye-bye.